Hello everybody. This is going to be a video response to Hannah, aka the Omaha Introvert's 1,000 subscribers contest. Congratulations, Hannah. Well done. She just joined the vinyl community 1 year ago, January of last year, started making videos, and has since rocketed to 1,000 subscribers, which not too many can claim to do. So very well done. Great channel, great videos, great vinyl community member. Her tastes run from kind of 60s rock, psych, up to 90s and more modern rock, alternative rock. So she asks us 3 questions, 3 favorite female artists. I'm glad you asked that question, Hannah. It's a kind of a topic I've thought about off and on too, kind of turned over in my mind, starting over some kind of a thread or whatever. But actually, kind of was intimidating at first because there's so many fantastic female artists. Of course, could show Aretha Franklin, could show Joni Mitchell, any number of others. Of course, kind of don't tend to get their due in the vinyl community and the vinyl collecting world. But I thought I would show 3 kind of lesser known ones, maybe lesser understood, that are near and dear to me since I became more involved in record collecting. And it's funny how these things go. You kind of know these artists by name or whatever. Start collecting records, you find a record at the thrift store or something and pick it up, and then that leads you to the next one and one after that, and you start learning all about these fascinating artists with the incredible careers. And that is the case for all 3 of these favorite female artists I'm going to show. Going to start off with Laura Nyro, Eli and the 13th Confession, Jewish-Italian girl from the Bronx, I believe. Grew up in that era of New York street corner harmonies. Her developing as a pianist and singer-songwriter. Her music incorporated elements of soul, brill-building pop, kind of show tunes, and just fantastic harmonies, fantastic hooks. Her songs were big hits for artists like Three Dog Night, who did the title track. The Fifth Dimension had some successes with her, and this has some of my favorite songs by her. Stone Soul Picnic, Sweet Blindness, fantastic artist, amazing songwriter. Check her out if you don't know her. Passed away far too young from cancer. Another artist I wasn't too familiar with, who has kind of a fascinating career, is Raavan. She was born in Poland. Most of her family was wiped out in the Holocaust. Came to America. She formed an all-girl rock band called Goldie and the Gingerbreads, I believe. Goldie was her nickname. And they were actually the first all-female rock group signed to a major label by Ahmet Ertegun of Atlantic Records, who signed them to the Atco subsidiary label. They had a little bit of success. Later, she was asked to tour in England by Chas Chandler, who's famous for his work with Jimi Hendrix, of course. She toured in England. While there, she formed a group called 10 Wheel Drive in more of a hard-driving blues rock style. And I discovered her through this record. 10 Wheel Drive with Raavan on lead vocals, Construction No. 1, their debut album. Hard-driving blues rock, bit of psych elements, I would say. Wicked album. She left 10 Wheel Drive around 1971, pursued a solo career through the 1970s. By the late 1970s, she was kind of getting involved in the punk scene, the whole CBGB era. Ended up producing the debut by the Dead Boys, as well as other artists, and putting out her own solo albums in a punk-influenced style. Here's another one, Raavan, and I Mean It, from 1979. So, still continuing as an artist today. She's put out an autobiography, I understand. I'll have to track that down one of these days. So Raavan, kind of a pioneering female rocker. Not too well known, I guess. And last up is an artist, again, discovered all through picking up the odd record here and there. And that leads you like stepping stones further on. It is Buffy Sainte-Marie, pioneering folk artist. Here's her debut album. I thrifted this beautiful condition copy a couple of years ago. It's My Way, from 1964, I think this came out, on the Vanguard label. Folk artist, heavily known for her work in promoting awareness of Indigenous peoples' issues. Her whole life's work has basically been devoted to opening doors for Indigenous people, increasing understanding and awareness. Started out as a folk artist with some very pointed protest songs like "Now That the Buffalo's Gone," "My Country, 'Tis of Thy Dying." Continued on, pioneered electronically processed music on her 1969 album Illuminations. She's far from a kind of standard dusty traditionalist folky. She mixes those kind of European folk songs and folk traditions with many other influences. Very interested in keeping current, very interested in technology. She was the first woman, or the first artist actually, to record an album over the internet in the very early 90s. She created an educational curriculum for Indigenous people in the very early days of the internet, which saw classrooms in Hawaii, her home state, interacting with other Indigenous classrooms all across Canada and the US. Very, very influential and pioneering artist. Was blacklisted by 2 presidents in the 1970s, which hurt her career. She didn't even know about it until years later. And there's a biography of her out right now, which I've just finished reading coincidentally the other day. Very, very nicely done. Details all of her many accomplishments, and I think the author of this book is actually local to me, Vancouver, Canada. There's a couple of references to the two of them meeting up for interviews locally. So Buffy Sainte-Marie, kind of known as a folky, but much, much more. Hugely influential artist. Next, Hannah asks us to show 2 favorite subgenres of music. I was thinking of going with some reggae ones. My channel's kind of known for that. But I thought I would break it up a bit and maybe show some records I haven't been able to dip into too much in my regular videos. So I'm going to start with doo-wop. The doo-wop tradition is kind of near and dear to me. I kind of grew up, as well as checking out the current music at the time. I was dipping back into kind of the 1950s and 1960s music, figuring out where the music I was hearing on the radio had all come from. And those doo-wop sounds were one I discovered very early. Love all that kind of harmony music. Still resonates with me today. So I'm going to show the Cleftones, Heart and Soul. It's on the Emus label. Cleftones. Interestingly, I think it was Little Anthony says he doesn't know what doo-wop is. What's called doo-wop is basically black R&B music, which of course was adopted by white groups as well. Got Danny and the Juniors. Rockin' with Danny and the Juniors. It's a compilation. MCA, later one by them. Later compilation. I remember I used to work with this older guy, kind of getting to retirement age. So he was probably from the generation that was into that music at the time. And I was talking about that Danny and the Juniors group one time. And he said, well, that music from that era was kind of simple. Which on the face of it is. But there's a joy to that kind of music. That an innocence, I guess you would say. It was often performed by artists who were the same age as their audience, so it was kind of like teens communicating with other teens through the medium of popular music. It was just a fantastic era. Much of what I have from the doo-wop subgenre is on 45s. Here's a classic one, The 5 Satins in the Still of the Night, done many times. It's on the Regency label. Now the second subgenre I'm going to show is girl groups, kind of almost like a female-oriented offshoot of doo-wop. The girl groups kind of flourished in the early 60s. Very tough to find those records nowadays, I find. I don't see them at all in my area. Most of these ones I'm going to show I picked up in Seattle, kind of when I was getting going with record collecting. Got the Angels, My Boyfriend's Back. Nice mono copy on Smash Records, nice condition. The Chantels, got their big hit Maybe on it. That is on End label, writing on the label there. This was a very early thrift find for me, not in the best shape, and this is the only one actually I found locally. Not in the best shape, but it plays fine, and it just sounded incredible when I spun it the first time. The chiffons with their classic He's So Fine. Lori label. And of course, the fabulous Ronettes. Phyllis label. Again, not the greatest condition, got it cheap, plays fine. So those are my two subgenres. The last question Hannah asks is a favorite piece of audio equipment. This kind of threw me for a loop. I'm not a gear guy at all. I badly need to upgrade my system. Still, it's kind of served me well enough for a number of years now. So that got me thinking about my old CD player. When I first started buying CDs, I switched to a new player. I saved up, bought one of these 3-disc bookshelf players. I think it was Panasonic or Techniques, and it just sounded so sweet. It blew me away. That kind of marked the beginning of my my relationship with music, changing from just being kind of a casual consumer to becoming more serious about it, investigating different kinds of styles of music, and digging deeper. And I enjoyed that CD system for many years. Been racking my brains trying to remember whatever happened to it. I cannot remember what happened to it. Either it broke down and I got rid of it, or I can't really remember. But it sure sounded sweet, and I have lots of memories of plugging CDs into that system for the first time and feeling the bass and the sound. It was awesome. So that is my entry for you, Hannah. Congratulations once again, and cheers.